Good evening. Welcome to Leicester Fan TV. Normally we have a Wednesday night show. We bring it forward to a Tuesday night to get a special guest on for you. Get your comments in below if you've got any questions for our guest tonight. We've got Ian Stringer from BBC Radio Leicester coming on to chat to you about his memories of following the Foxes from a youngster all the way through to be commentating on them now. But it's 8:30 and it's time for the Foxes Tale. We've got some evenings in. We got evening all Dave, evening Phil. I know you're busy sorting the kids out, you've just said to me. Evening Tom. Evening all. There we go, lads. Well, we'll get him in. The man behind the mic, as I call him now. BBC Radio Leicester's Ian Stringer. Evening, mate.
How are you? Okay.
Yeah, good, thanks, Ian. Thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Well, kick it off. Where did it all start? How did you get into being a Leicester City fan?
Oh, I can help you out with that. Stand by, everybody. Hold on. I can help. Hold on. Have props. Everybody. Have props. How about try and get the reflection off? How about that? A little me in blue.
That Wolverhampton at home?
Wolverhampton Wanderers away. Now, back in those days, there weren't away mascots, but I was meant to be mascot for a home game, but it was postponed because of ice at Filbert Street.
Oh.
And so the club said to me, "Do you want to be an away mascot?" That was in 1991, I think. I've been going to watch City for a few years before then. And I was mascot with Ali Mocklin at Molineux, which was lovely. My first memory of going to Filbert Street, my dad and I looked at this the other day, actually, in Fossils of Foxes, and I think we deduced that I was 4 or 5. It was a Boxing Day game at home. I remember nothing, just the warm food that my aunt got me because I was freezing cold. Didn't quite get it. Was told that I was following the team in blue. And then my real first memories of following Leicester City were in Pen 4. So my dad, and I still don't know to this day, kind of how this ever happened or how he ever managed this. But kids, so I go in with my dad, we'd pick up my friend Steve Rogers. We'd walk down kind of Ayleston Road, then turn right at the Statue of Liberty, and you go into Filbert Street, which was obviously left and not up to the King Power. And we go up into Pen 4 of the Cop, and my dad had, people religiously had their own spot in the concrete where they'd just stand and everyone kind of knew, and you had your own footprint. And my dad and Rogers had their own spot right at the back. And I was around that age, kind of 7, 8, 9, 10. And the Cop, you couldn't see over the barriers. You had no chance as a kid. But in Pen 4, they kept the lawnmowers in like a box right at the front of Pen 4. The groundsman would put all the mowers in there. There were gates kind of the pitch side. They'd open the gates out, get the lawnmowers out. So I'd climb on top and sit there and be able to peek over the fence and watch the game. And we're talking kind of Tony James rescue goal against Oxford kind of time. So like late 80s, early 90s, just missed Lineker. But yeah, kind of those early 90s games. And then obviously the playoff finals, went to all of those, and the League Cup finals. And yeah, it's in my blood, and thankfully it's in the blood of my children as well, because that's kind of what we've got to do.
Oh, definitely. You've got to try and pass it down. And it's me doing the same thing with Marble at the moment. He's now into Vardy this and Vardy that. There's every goal. Is it Vardy? It's one of the things you want to pass down and keep them, the generations coming to the football club.
Yep.
I mean, you grew up a Leicester fan. You then you decided to go into journalism. I'll take it, went uni and did all that. And then you didn't.
No, not seen the inside of university. In my life, other than basketball. I don't have an A level to my name.
Fair play.
I left. I was living on my own when I was 17. My dad was a publican and moved. And it just got to a stage where I was at college in Surrey, actually, at the time, down south in a little village called Godstone. And he moved again to Leighton Buzzard. And I was at college at the time doing A levels, and I was like, nah, I ain't moving again. I can't do it. So I stayed where I was, lived on my own, and the A levels didn't go particularly well. So I decided to bin it and get into the workplace. I went to the first place I could think of, and that was retail. And I started working at Dixon selling TVs to people when I was 17, 18, and stayed doing that until my mid to late 20s. So I have a strong sales background.
Fair play. Question while we're talking about the playoffs. Which one was your favourite trip to Wembley, Ian?
Hi, Lee. Pretty easy, isn't it, really? It's the Derby one, because having gone through the heartache of Blackburn, the heartache of Swindon, and my dad tells me to this day, like when the equaliser went in and it was 3-0 against Swindon, and you thought, what's going on here? There's a miracle happening. It's magic. It's playoffs. It's last year's over. It's now 3-0, having come from nowhere to level it up. And my dad says he vividly remembers that I became a football fan around that time because I was bought into it, and I turned and I jumped at him at Wembley. I just jumped at my dad, and obviously, thankfully, he caught me, and we went mad. And then, there was yet another penalty that never was that was given, and then Derby the next year, Lee, is the answer to the question. But they did it the hard way then as well, didn't they? Because they went 1-0 down against Derby to ultimately come back and win it. So Derby's got to be the favourite playoff visit to Wembley.
Yeah, I feel so. Silence of the Lamb was the best.
Indeed, Philip, indeed.
I mean, so you carried on with Dixon's, and then where did the career go then?
I moved from retail. I moved around a little bit, again, predominantly down south, St Albans area, Hemel Hempstead, Luton, a bit of North London, kind of Uxbridge area, Hampstead. That's quite a nice gas, by the way. And then I moved into training. So I would train Dixon staff. I'd had enough of retail and Boxing Day, and yeah, it's relentless retail. Anybody that works in retail or works with the retail industry, which I know Philip has a strong association with, I have tremendous respect for, because putting point of sale in and making sure that merchandising's right, and then, by the way, you've got to sell stuff to people. So tremendous respect for everybody. I'd had enough and decided to go to head office, helped with training, and then when I was about 26 or so, I moved into software sales. So still sales. I was selling animation software, but I was in charge of finding retailers to sell it for us, so the reseller arm. And then part-time, I wanted to become a broadcaster. And on my 21st birthday, there was a competition on Radio 1. Sarah Cox was on there, and you had to commentate on your CD collection as though it was a game of football. And it was my 21st birthday, just coming back from the gym in the morning, and thought that'd be pretty funny. So I called in and I got through, and I had to commentate. I had a CD rack, and I had to commentate for 60 seconds on my CD collection as though it was a game of football. And I was up against somebody else, and then people texted in to vote, and whoever got the most votes went through. And I won. I got through it. It was funny. And then there was like a final, and the winner got to go to the FA Cup final with 9 friends. It was at Cardiff at the Millennium Stadium that year in 2002, and I won. It was a very, very expensive prize, and I made a friend that day called Mark Chapman. Chappers presents Match of the Day 2, sometimes Match of the Day 1, and anchors 5 Live. He's an extraordinary broadcaster. And I said to him after that day, I was like, I commentated on my CD collection because I've always fancied myself as a commentator. I've got a big gob, I sell stuff, my football knowledge is okay. And he said to me, mate, just camp on the doorstep of your local radio station. So I did. And I started making the tea. As big a cliche as that is, that's a fact. I started by making the tea in 2002. And then slowly but surely, I got non-league scores from the fax machine and did a little non-league corner at the end of the show and got a bit of airtime. And one day the Wycombe Wanderers reporter couldn't, for one reason or another, cover the chairboy. So I stepped in and covered. And do you know, that game was against Cambridge United a long, long time ago, about 1,000 games ago. And I wasn't nervous, which I found pretty bizarre. I just did it. Just cracked on. Tony Adams was manager. That was interesting. And I think I did. I've had some managers in my time, by the way. I think I did 3 or 4 seasons covering Wycombe and MK Dons with Three Counties Radio. And for one reason or another, left my job temporarily there to go and try and be Lord Sugars next staff member. That goes really well.
We'll stay away from that bit.
Mate, I ain't got a problem. The job at Leicester came up, I applied and got it. And still to this day, 630 Leicester City games in, I pinch myself that I get to cover Leicester City as a professional. It's an unbelievable job. And then I look at this montage behind me, and I saw them lift the Premier League trophy, and they paid me. It's ridiculous. I am a very, very lucky boy.
I mean, you got to the Foxes. It was a terrible season the season before, relegation from the old League One to, well, Championship then. It would have been to the new Division One. First away game was Stockport, a 0-0 draw, if I remember rightly. Right. And it was a hard time for the football club. Things had gone through a strange time, the relegation, change of manager. Nigel Pearson had come into the football club, but seemed an interesting appointment, seeing that he'd kept Southampton up on the final day of the season and we'd gone down. And you then went on to commentators winning the Division 1 title with Mac Oakley as captain at the time.
Yep, he was, yeah. And I thought at that time, I was pretty happy. I wouldn't say I was pretty happy they were in League One. I felt comfortable that Leicester City were in League One because I'd covered a lot of League One football. So I kind of knew Whaddon Road at Cheltenham pretty well. I'd been there numerous times covering Wickham and MK before. So a season in League One for me, I was like, all right, League One, done League One loads. I know the grounds, I know the setup. Crack on, do it, no problem. And they won it at the first time of asking. And I remember calling the goal at Southend, Matty Fright's second goal, something like Leicester City are back where they belong. They're back in the Championship. And at the time, as a commentator, it's a strange job because you say things that are in that moment. And in that moment, they are your belief that they are true. And they are. Much better commentators than me have said game over at 2-3-0. And the side have come back and levelled it up or won it. So, but what you say in that moment is what you believe. And I said, Leicester City are back where they belong, they're back in the Championship. Little did I know that wasn't even the start of the story, really, was it?
Oh no, we then go into the following season with the end of the season playoff, a 1-0 defeat at home to Cardiff in the first leg, following by the most bizarre game I've probably ever been to at that point in my lifetime. I was there in the away end and thinking we've won this, and then they concede in the last minute before extra time. And then the heartache of a Frenchman deciding that chipping a penalty was the best option in that pressure moment. It was a strange end to the season. I mean, we thought that would be the strange end, but we then would go Forest away. I mean, someone's put on here, what's your favourite commentating moment? Would it have been where they got on Russell? Put it on here. Russell put, what's your favourite moment come to Leicester? Surely it's the knockout goal, L.A. Le Bleu at Forest Inn.
Hi, Ross. No, the question was Leicester goal, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because ridiculously, my favourite commentary goal is that one. And it involved a Belgian playing for Chelsea, scoring against Spurs. That was my favourite commentary moment. But my favourite commentary Leicester City moment, it's hard, isn't it? Because, it's very, very difficult. In there would be, Ross, to answer your question, Vardy's goal against Liverpool, obviously, because he just scored that from his laces to me, just from the bottom of his boots. He just licked it with his right foot and it's gone in. And you think, are they going to win it? Are they going to win it? Are they going to win it? And then Vardy scores that and you think, good Lord. And you've got to call that. My job is to encapsulate the mood of the game at that point and in some respect for the fans. So that would be certainly up there. I'm a soft old sausage. So Andy King's goal against Everton on the 7th of May 2016 when they lifted the trophy and Kingy scored. And again, from nowhere, my goal call involved it's the boy that's got all 3 medals. Because at the time, I just thought that was phenomenal that somebody won League One, the Championship, and the Premier League with the same team. Outrageous. Champions League, Mark O'Brien against Bruges, the first ever Champions League goal. So they'd be my favourites. They would certainly probably be my top three, but I'm sure somebody would contest that and say Wes Morgan against Sevilla or Knockers against Forest that day where everything just fell into place and Chris Wood had it. I think Harry Kane. No, Chris Wood. Sorry, Chris Wood had it, didn't he? And then found
knockout.
Knockers and away they went. But the previous one against Watford, I think. I was saying in the first leg, Harry Kane, Jamie Vardy, I think on the bench against Watford that season, or the playoff game, which again, there's been some incredible ups and clearly.
I mean, we talk about the playoff final. Another game I was sadly at, and I remember thinking when knockout went down and the penalty were given, I just remember the feeling of we haven't scored and everyone had gone mental. And I remember just standing there. There wasn't really we're going to do this, because the question I was going to ask you, I know knockout took the penalty, but the question I've never understood, if we had David Nugent standing on the pitch on the halfway line and he didn't stand up to take the pen.
Nuge says that he regrets not taking responsibility that day, and Nuge said that he regrets not focusing on penalties a little bit more as a player, actually, because he's a pretty cool head. David Nugent, he's calm under pressure. I remember, like you, when the penalty was given, I remember Alan Young, who was sat next to me at the time, saying, "Don't let him take it." The first thing that came out of Youngy's mouth, Youngy said, "Oh no." And I didn't question him because, again, your summariser, the guy next to you, works on feeling and how they feel. And Youngy said, "Oh no, don't give him it. Don't let him take it." And Youngy, in that moment of euphoria and ecstasy and pressure, Youngy knew, because he'd been there, he knew that what had gone on with Anthony and his character, that he'd want to take it. Clearly, Youngy and I aren't going to have an influence from the sidelines, and Anthony Knockout took it. But I thought that was going to be my hardest 21 seconds in broadcasting between Almunia, wasn't it? I think he saved it twice.
Yeah.
And then the ball goes down the other end. Ikechianya has it, and Andy King's jockeying him. And we all look back on it now, and hindsight is a wonderful thing. And I love Kingy to pieces. I do. I really do. I adore him. But when I watch it now, like Harry Kane in the World Cup, we all shout at him, square it to Sterling. I shout at Andy King now, do him. Just go through him on the sideline and defend a set piece. No, he didn't, and Deeney scored, and who would have known what would happen the next season? But I thought that was my toughest 21 seconds.
We'd then go on to the champions, winning the league and the championship. A canter in the end, really. We had some ups and down games, but there's plenty of good games against the likes of Derby and Forest where we really enjoyed ourselves, and we made ourselves look like champions in that season. It's one of the hardest leagues to get out, and you must have felt quite proud to see the team going back to the Premier League after over a decade away from it.
Yeah, and they cruised it, really, didn't they? Ultimately, that season, I think they set records for away wins, consecutive wins as well. I think Kevin Phillips was really important in that season, actually. I don't think he gets enough credit. Stalwarts like Lloyd Dyer performing brilliantly. What a footballer he was for the Foxes during that time. Scored the goal, of course, up at Brighton that crowned them champions. It was a great season. Thoroughly enjoyed that season, going up to the Premier League, and again as a reporter. It's funny because, like, a lot of people think that because I'm a fan, I don't class myself right now as a Leicester fan, because I can't be. Because what does a Leicester fan do? Shouts and screams, take their kids to the football, wears a shirt. I don't do any of those things. I can't do any of those things. It feels strange if ever I put a Leicester shirt on, which is very, very, very rare. Because I've got to be balanced. It's really, really difficult, but still somewhere in you, there's this lad.
Yeah.
That sees your club promoted to the Premier League, and also my kids. I've got 3 kids. You might be able to see little Owen at Wembley, and it's them that get me in commentary. If I think about them for a split second, I'm gone. My dad or me or being a boy Leicester fan, I'm all right with that. It's my kids, particularly Owen. But yeah, I was overjoyed. I was overjoyed that they were in the Premier League, that my kids could support a Premier League team, and we all thought, let's all be honest, nick 40 points for as many seasons as they possibly can, stay in the Premier League, jobs are good.
I mean, that first season back, the first few games, very tough start to the season. But I mean, the game will stand out in that one. And the moment for Mr. Vardy's first Premier League goal must have been a special moment to commentate on.
It was actually. I got a regret about that, the commentary of that goal, because I call him son. I say, you're in on goal, son, which I've not done since. I wouldn't do. But again, at that time, it was that moment, and you just I felt part of that primal atmosphere in the stadium that night, and yeah, to roll it home again. I thought that September. I remember asking a photographer, Michael Regan, who's a very, very, very good Premier League photographer, Leicester fan as well. He'd got a shot of Cambiaso's goal from behind the goal. Sometimes they set the cameras up and they're controlled by remote access.
Yeah.
He'd got a picture of Cambiaso literally wheeling away in the background, De Gea diving, semi-diving with a grumpy face and the ball in the net. And I remember thinking, again, this is it. This is going to be my defining moment as a commentator. Leicester City's defining Premier League game, win, moment. Like, coming back to beat Manchester United 5-3 doesn't happen. I thought, wow. And I asked Michael for that picture, and he said, mate, no problem. As long as it's for your own use, like to put up in the house or something, no problem. Go for it. And he sent me the picture, and I kept it. And I thought, brilliant, that's it. And then, obviously, it went wrong, and to the bottom of the table for 100 days, and it looked like they were going to go down. And again, Kingy scores at home against West Ham, and then Vardy away at West Brom, and it starts motoring, it starts picking up. And actually, again, they kind of stayed up with a little bit to spare that season, didn't they? Incredibly. There's been very few quiet seasons.
That's over the last few years. There is a question during that relegation battle that someone mentioned, Mr. Pearson. He had a few incidents, one being the old, as we said, the strings, the ostrich gate. You, sir, are an ostrich. I mean, it must have been strange sitting in the press room when he came out with that one.
I wasn't there.
Oh, weren't you?
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the press conference for that because our interviews are done outside of the press conference room. So we've got a radio booth. So the managers do TV normally, pre-COVID. They'll do TV interviews in the TV area at the end of the tunnel. Then they'll come and do radio, and then they'll go through to the press conference room. So I'm post-match. I'm not in that room.
Pinning James McCarthy down on the halfway line against Palace.
Yeah, do you know, so much of that particular incident was blown out of proportion. Nigel was just having a giggle. Listen, Nigel Pearson and I have had our run-ins.
I was going to say, someone are you back on the Christmas card? Yes.
Hello, Keith. You know, strangely, Keith, yes, I am. Which in itself is bizarre. After the tragic death of Cumbershire, it changed me quite a lot as a man, and it made me realise the fragility of life. And I wanted to try and repair a few bridges that had seemingly been burnt. And I decided to reach out to Nigel through somebody that I know and say, look, there's no hidden agenda. Nigel was out of work. I just want to bury the hatchet. I just want to come and say hello and just, crack on. Bygones be bygones. And I got a call saying, yeah, no problem. Here's his address. Come up. So I went up, and he was stood there brilliantly. At the end of his driveway, Nigel lives in a nice house, as you would imagine, a house that he's been in for a long, long time. And he was stood there, kind of arms on his hips at the end of his driveway, looked at me in that headmaster style. First time we'd seen each other for years, and there'd been a lot of animosity. He went, now then, will it be tea or coffee? I said, I'll have a tea, Nigel, please. Sugar, lad? Yeah, go on, chuck one in. All right, come and sit down. And I was there for a couple of hours, having a chat, barely talked about the issues, really. A little bit, danced around them. He had his view, I had mine. He was a lot more relaxed, a lot more sympathetic. I was as well, because I'd matured a little bit. We all make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I stayed there for a couple of hours, had a good chat about work, about managerial stuff, about the family, about saw his wife while she was there, said hello. I know her. And actually, yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, I've not actually got a Christmas card from him, but I'm not sure Nigel actually does Christmas cards. But when City played Watford in the first game after the lockdown, Nigel was in charge, and I was pitch side going up to the commentary box, and he walked past, had a wave, had a quick hello, how are you? So yeah, listen, we had our run-ins, we had our issues, no problem, but I think we're all right now.
Good, good. We'd then go on to what would be the most craziest 38 games in the club's history, starting off by winning the league. I mean, no one would have thought that there's Sunderland at home, a 4-2 win. And I remember the chance we're going to win the league. And I think at 4-2, we were all having a bit of a laugh because the season before and thinking, if we get 40 points, we'll be more than happy again. To hear the chance that we're going to win the league after one game was even more funnier. But then to go on and achieve that greatest of all achievements in the football history, 5,000 to 1, and again to commentating on your boyhood, club, that must have been even more of a special moment than the League One and the Championship.
I think it's only started to sink in the last couple of years. I think in 2016 when it happened, it was madness. We were all at Vicky Park, and as a city, we just thought it united people like I've never seen before. I've never seen sport unite our city like that. Our city, I think, is relatively united actually, and diverse, and I love that about our city and our county. I really do. But to see that day was just out of this world. And I remember being in the newsroom with Jason. Jason Bourne was a presenter back then. The week of the build up to the Everton game. And I just had this surreal kind of moment. I looked at him and I said, mate, this is weird because I know in 2 days' time, the greatest day of my life and your life is going to happen. And I know it's coming. And I know that afterwards it will never get better. Never. Because even if they win the league again, it won't be like that first time. It won't be that 5,000 watt to one story. It won't be Claudio being Claudio in the press conference. It won't be Vardy scoring from everywhere, 11 consecutive games. We won't have that. I remember saying to him, mate, in 48 hours' time, it's going to be our greatest day of our lives. And it's strange knowing that that's coming. It's strange knowing that it's all set up. And I remember Bocelli, and Bocelli was announced. And I'm not the biggest classical music fan, I've got to say. And we heard Andrea Bocelli's going to sing. I was like, cool, all right. Turned up and I heard his sound check on May the 7th, before the Everton game. It blew me away. His sound check, I've still got a video of it now. His sound check, and he goes for that big Nessun Dorma moment, that big Nessun Dorma note in his sound check. There's about 150, 200 people in the stadium at this stage. Nobody Virtue's doing his run, he's waddling around. And his sound check got a standing ovation. The 150 people that were in there that day just looked around and went, "Ooh, this day's going to be a little bit special. It's going to be a little bit different." And just watching them lift that Premier League trophy just seemed bizarre. It is bizarre. And I remember at that time thinking, Jesus, you can strike me down now because I'm done. I'm done. I've seen Leicester City win the Premier League. There will not be a greater sporting story ever. There won't. That's it.
I mean, you were lucky enough to be at Stamford Bridge the Monday night. You then found that you and Jason on the phone in and you're singing with your dad on the songs. I mean, it was a memorable night that night. I mean, for everybody to head down to the King Power after, and you headed down yourself once you got back from Chelsea. I mean, the emotions on that night. I mean, look, we all would have loved to win the league ourselves, but to have it done and then have the build-up, like you said, to the Chelsea game, to the Everton game at home, and we're lifting the trophy with no pressure on us to go in that game and to win it. It made it even more special that there was a laid-back attitude towards that game, that we were all there for one big party. There was no pressure of having to win a game of football to win the league. It made it more special, I think, in the end. We then, we got then to go to Chelsea at Claudio's old club on the final day of the season to get the 1-1 draw, and Claudio to get the standing ovation he deserved from Chelsea from all the work he'd done there. And for us, it then go weird because the season then things didn't seem to go to plan. Claudio left after the Seville defeat, and we were all quite shocked considering we'd come away with an away goal where they were still in the tie. The news then broke a few hours later that Claudio had been sacked and Craig Shakespeare had been put in charge. Going into a second leg, what we all knew was going to be very difficult. And again, Mr. Leicester, as I call him sometimes, Albrighton pops up and scores another goal when you need him. He doesn't score many, but when he does, they're special ones. And that the atmosphere and the build-up to that game for me was up there. The intensity of the fans
were great, weren't they? The away fans congregating in Leicester, enjoying it, singing, walking down to the stadium. Yeah, the Champions League was special. Champions League away nights were special. I've just written a piece about Ben Chilwell, actually, who played Champions League football before he played Premier League football, incidentally. He played in the Porto game, the 5-0 away defeat. But those Champions League nights were so special. And it was a bonus. And my time hop today on my phone told me that I had the pots, the UEFA Champions League draw pots, and my headphones, and Leicester City were in pot 1. And that's just ridiculous. That is bizarre. I mean, they're in the Europa League now, and they're not going to be in pot 1 or 2. They're in pot 1 in the Champions League, and those Champions League nights were just unforgettable. And to play and compete and win amongst the elite. Let's remember, they cruised the group. They didn't concede a goal for the first, 4 games?
Undefeated at home.
Yeah. Bruce scored, didn't they, against them, and then Porto stuck 5 past them. But, Champions League days and the away days and even the draw. I mean, the draw, Bruges. Oh, Bruges was beautiful. Porto, Copenhagen, and then Sevilla, Madrid.
We couldn't have asked for a better draw. I mean, in theory, we could have come out with the right shocker, but we got some great places to go. We got some great atmosphere. Moving on to the here and now. I mean, we're now into the end of the weirdest season I think we'll ever have, another weird season like this, and having a 3-month, 4-month break before we then finished off behind closed doors. I mean, you're lucky enough you've still been able to go to the games where the fans have been stuck at home. And for me, it's a very strange thing just to be watching an empty stadium. I mean, for you to commentate on as well, I mean, you must thrive off some of the atmosphere coming from the crowd during the games, and to have an empty stadium, it must be a strange thing to try and commentate on.
Horrible, really, really horrible, because as a commentator, you kind of ride the wave of the crowd. So if there's a red card and the crowd are on the ref, you jump on that wave and you ride that wave and you bring it back down as it calms down. The same with goals or goals against, even defeats. A commentator still uses the crowd as a commentator for a home team. When they got whacked by Portsmouth away, you still use that crowd. It's kind of, you feel around for it and you dodge around it as a commentator and you use it to bounce your shoulders off of. There's no one there. And listen, I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, I really am to have been at the games. I am. But they're horrible. They're horrible. And I certainly never underestimated the power and importance of a crowd. And I don't think Leicester City Football Club did either, because they know the importance of the Blue Army. But if ever an exclamation mark needed at the end of Blue Army, this lockdown has proven that, because it's been really, really difficult without crowds. And I hope that crowds can return safely very soon, and hopefully the numbers can increase as well.
Just quickly, if you're going in, I mean, there is the news breaking earlier today that Chilwell's probably going to be signing for Chelsea in the next 3 to 4 days. I know Lionel Messi's now come up, so we could probably put that 50 million towards him signing.
That'd employ him for a couple of months, wouldn't it?
We could get him for a loan period, I suppose. But do you feel that there's a lot of strength in need doing him, especially with the UEFA Cup this year? It's going to be a long, hard slog this season with being extra games. And I know we've signed Mendy back as a midfielder. I think it's a great little bit of business. It's going to be a strange transfer window with the COVID's involved. I think it's going to knock a lot of price tags down, because people haven't probably got the finances they normally would with the crowd to not being in there. But do you think left back will be the main place now to strength if Chilwell leaves?
I don't think it'll be the main place, no. There's time. There is time to sign players, and I know that there's a lot of frustration, and I understand why there's a lot of frustration. But the window's open, and it remains open until early October, doesn't it? So there is time to strengthen. They will need to sell Chilwell to release the cash to sign other players and other strengthen in other areas. Of course, there's the added issue of Fousseyni Diabate, Rashid Gazelle, Islam Slimani, Adrian Silva. players that were out on loan that are paid by the club. They are employees, they are staff, they are players. What are you going to do with them? If you don't have plans, you're going to need to get them off the wage bill fast to release those funds. Luke Thomas is a good player, just signed a contract extension. Good news. James Maddison signed a contract extension. That's very good news. Let's remember, Leicester City, I think, spent £24.1 million on 5 players. If we're assuming Chilwell goes for £45 million, that they've made £250 million on. So the price is £225 million on 5 players. So they've still managed to finish above Spurs and Arsenal, having sold 4 of them. N'Golo, Riyadh, being 2 pretty significant ones. Yeah, they need to sign. Yeah, of course they do. They need to strengthen. They'll need numbers. Brendan will want that because the schedule is going to be tough. Incidentally, I think the Premier League is going to be a stronger league. I think Leeds coming up. Leeds are going to be strong. I think their momentum will be good. They play some really good football, as does Fulham under Scott Parker. West Bromwich Albion are likely, respectfully, to maybe scratch it out. I can see them staying up. I look at the Premier League and I'm not sure who's going to go down.
It's a tough one.
Most seasons you've looked at it and gone, yeah, they're going to go down. They're going to struggle. Villa to maybe struggle. Is it Burnley's season to finally struggle? Of teams like Newcastle got enough to keep their heads above water. Palace, big clubs. So to answer the question, yes, they need to strengthen. Yes, they need to get people in, but there's time. And there's things that need to happen. There's a new training ground around the corner. They're in Europe this season. Next season, I think, will be very, very different. I thought they'd finish 4th last season. They finished 5th. I think I would take a top 10 finish right now.
2 questions for you going. 1, over the next 2 transfer windows, is it vital we sign Vardy's replacement, who's going to take over from the reins, considering he's probably only got maybe 3 good seasons if his body stays fit? And the second question is your opinion on Demarai Gray and his development since he's been at the football club.
On Jamie Vardy will go down as the greatest Leicester City player ever of all time, but he's also the biggest problem because how do you replace him? How it's not a case of the king's dead, long live the king, because there's nobody to step into those shoes, those boots. It's so hard because if Leicester sign Danny Ings tomorrow, he's going to be on the bench unless you can get him in and play him around Vardy and play him as a 1 and withdrawings or something, or play him as a 3 and get somebody alongside him. But that fulcrum is always going to be Jamie Vardy. Whilst he's got 2 legs attached to his hips, he will play. I think he probably has got a good couple of 3 seasons left in him, incidentally, because he's fit as a fiddle still. Yes, the biggest task for the club is signing his replacement, but how do you do that? I don't know how to do that. Develop from within? I'm not sure. You can't take a gamble on £1 million Fleetwood signing in the Premier League these days because they did that in the Championship and he got time to bed down. So, no, I see that as a really, really difficult thing to do. Demarai Gray, bags of talent. His feet are so quick up close and personal. When you see him, when you're there, he's gone in a flash. He can beat anybody on his day, but his biggest problem is he wants to beat them twice. He'll beat them and he'll come back to beat them again. Demarai Gray could have the world at his feet, but something not clicking. It's almost there. He's a Raheem Sterling waiting to be delivered in front of us all, but there's just something not. He's got pace. He's not got strength, but as a winger, he can use his brain, his skill, his feet to get past people. There's something just not quite clicking. I think they'll give him another season. I hope they do, because then they can go, or maybe January. Then they can go, look, we've all tried. It's just not worked. It's time to call it a day, maybe. But I don't think that they're in a position whereby they can afford to sell a winger right now because they need all the wingers they've got.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure having on, mate.
Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Mate, I think everyone here will appreciate it, and thanks for coming later for you, mate. Much appreciated. Getting your story of your beloved Leicester City, tales of heartache from Watford and Cardiff through to the Premier League, great days. But as always, mate, thank you so much for your time, mate. Much appreciated.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. And what a journey it's been. I just want to say that I really do feel privileged. I feel I'm very, very lucky to do the job I do. I work hard at it. in keeping it in context, working hard. Being unscripted on the radio for 4 hours has its challenges, but I really am appreciative, and everybody that's ever listened or listens or tunes into the football forum on a Monday or listens on a match day, I'm incredibly thankful that everybody makes that choice, because it's a choice. People choose to watch this right now. People choose to listen to me on the radio. My nan listens to me on the radio. My nan has listened to Leicester City commentary all her life. She was in her 80s, and now it's her grandson. And I take that job as an honour. It really is an honour and it's a privilege. And I'm really thankful to everyone that's ever choose to tune in or continues to tune in.
Thank you once again. Hopefully, once the season starts up halfway through, we can get you back on, have a chat about the current season, mate. That'd be appreciated.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, when they're top of the tree and they're leaving Liverpool and Chelsea and Man City in the way.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thank you very much, Ian. Cheers, mate.
Thank you. Take it easy. Thank you.
Bye-bye. And as always, thank you to you fans who come on and watch this. We give it a time. Thank you to the sponsors who come on and sponsor us. It's all appreciated to buy the kit to do the jobs. And as ever, thank you for coming on doing your commentaries. But as always, good night.